So if you as a borrower are able to prepare these packages in such a way that you have majority of these documents ready for the lender right at the beginning, it really is going to help save you and the bank a significant amount of time in the processing. And so that's why I just really wanted to do a quick overview of basic SBA documentation. Now, do keep in mind that this is a very simple, basic list. Obviously, there are more documentation that is required, generally speaking, with, and it also depends on the transaction, right? So real estate transaction or franchise-related transactions, or equipment purchase or refinances. I mean, all of these various types of transactions will have slightly different requirements in terms of documentation, but I'm just really primarily touching on things that is generally required for most loans. So going down the list on the slide here, the first item is always tax returns, right? So tax returns are always required. Whether you're doing 7A, 504, if you are doing an SBA loan, you need to have tax returns, okay? The tax returns include the personal tax return, the business tax return, as in the business that is being financed, whether that is the seller's tax return in a purchase transaction or in a refinance or other non-purchase transactions, it would be that business tax return. Sometimes in the form of Schedule C as part of the personal tax return, but if it is a separate entity, then we will need the 3 years, most recent 3 years. And then the affiliate tax returns. Now, I'm not going to get too much into the affiliates, as Ron mentioned earlier. Or I believe Ron or Matt mentioned earlier, there is a lot of rules surrounding how to identify what is an affiliate, what isn't an affiliate. And so SBA has a set of criteria. It's not just one thing, but a set of criteria that helps you determine that. And it's not too easy to navigate. And so if you have a question as to whether a certain entity is an affiliate or not, it's typically best to ask your lender, the SBA lender, or you can reach out to someone like Ron, and they'll be able to help you answer that question based on the information, right? But anything that is deemed as an affiliate by the SBA, you would be required to submit 3 years of tax returns. So right now, although we are in 2022, because the 2021 tax returns are not yet due, the current requirements for tax returns for the various entities that I mentioned would be 2018 through 2020. Now, if you have the 2021 tax returns completed, that would be great, and you can definitely submit that. But the requirements for now, at least until the tax returns are required to be submitted, is just 18 through 20. Okay, and then the second item is the business financial statements. And I think this is actually an important one that many people already know about it. If you've ever received any sort of commercial loan or a business loan, you probably submitted, whether it was an SBA or just a regular conventional loan, you probably submitted a set of financial statements to your lender bank, right? But what's important here is the SBA's definition of business financial statements. It includes both the profit and loss statement as well as the balance sheet. Many times, more often than not, when we ask borrowers for a set of business financial statements, we receive just the profit and loss, right, or the income statement. So most people know when we ask for business financial statements, that's what they prepare. Like, here's my income statement, or here's my profit and loss. But the SBA actually requires that we get both the profit and loss and the balance sheet, and those two documents together make up the business financial statement that the SBA requires us to have. Okay, so if your lender for an SBA loan is requesting for business financial statements, please know that it's not just the income statement that you have to provide, but it is a combination of the income statement and the balance sheet that has to be provided together as a package that satisfies this requirement. Okay, and the business financial statements are required for both the subject, as in the business being financed, and the affiliate businesses, or the businesses that are deemed as affiliates under the SBA guidelines. And they have to be dated within 120 days of application. Okay, so what does that mean? Application does not mean the date that you submit the application to your lender or the bank. Okay, that is not the application date that they are talking about here. It is actually the date that the bank, upon their approval of the loan, submits the loan to the SBA. Okay, so considering where today is February 17th, if you were applying for a loan today and you were trying to prepare the financial statements and you're thinking, oh, 120 days, okay, that's about 4 months. So going back 4 months, I can submit, October end financial statement. Then you're thinking, okay, well, that's going to take me all the way to the end of February, but since I'm submitting my application today, I'm good with October end financial statements. Well, that's probably not true. Because, like I said, most lenders will take somewhere in the ballpark of 4 to 6 weeks or longer to process your loan. And so although the lender is getting that financial statement and the application from you today, by the time that loan goes through the process of underwriting and then approval, and then the lender finally submits that to the SBA, you're probably going to be sometime in March or even in April. So now, by the time that the lender is submitting that to the SBA, they're going to tell you, I'm sorry, but your financial statements are now stale, and we need you to give us updated financial statements. So I would generally recommend that you prepare financial statements, if at all possible, as recent as possible. So if you're in February now, maybe you don't have up to January end financials, but maybe you do have your financials ready up to the December end or year end of 2021. And so although that's less than 60 days ago, that really is going to give you that enough time to now be able to utilize those financials and not have to provide updated financials down the road.
Harrison, I want to take a minute and interrupt. Sorry about that, but I just want to check with our team how many questions we have out there, because I know we're going to get close on time here, and I want to make sure we have some minutes to answer those. Paul or Lorena, who's looking at those?
We only have a few that I only see like 3 at this point that haven't been addressed. We've already dismissed 14 to 16. So.
Okay, great. So if we can tick through these, then we have pretty quickly, Harrison, we can get onto those questions.
Sure. And those were really the meat of what I wanted to discuss. But, the other items, I'll just go through it very quickly. The legal documents, those are the documents that you use to set up your entity. If you have an entity, you can be a sole prop, which would just primarily require a fictitious business name statement. But if you have a corporation, you're looking at the articles of incorporation, the bylaws, and the statement of information. If you have an LLC, then you have articles of organization, the operating agreement, as well as the statement of information as well. So those are the typical documents you would require for the legal documents of the borrowing entity. Bank statements, always prepare 3 months. I mean, maybe some lenders will require less, 2 months, but generally speaking, 3 months bank statements. And you should definitely include the bank, the investment accounts, the IRA accounts, and all of these things. Now, a lot of times, borrowers they're a little bit wary of providing all of their bank statements and information. But I would say, as a lender, the vast majority of the time, unless you have millions and millions of dollars in the bank account, in which case you wouldn't qualify for an SBA loan, or you could potentially not qualify for an SBA loan because you're too well capitalized. Most of the time, providing all of your liquidity statements is going to be more helpful than hurtful to you. The bank, we as a bank, as lenders, we do not share your information. We do not, send your bank statements to other people. Everything is confidential, right? And so providing us all of your liquidity allows us to really accurately evaluate your situation And most of the time, more liquidity is going to be better for you. It's going to help you qualify for that loan, and present yourself as a stronger borrower, which may potentially help reduce the rates, because rates typically reflect the risk that the bank has to take, right? So I would say be open about your financials with the lender that you are working with, and give them all of the bank statements that you have. Okay. Lease agreements, I mean, typical, if you have a lease, if you're financing a business that's operating from a lease location, just make sure that the lease that you have or the lease that you will be taking over matches the term of the loan, typically 10 years, right? So make sure that the lease, including options, fill that term, okay? Franchise fuel supply agreements, I mean, we can do a whole seminar just on this, but there is the Sba Franchise Directory, okay? If you go to Google, type in Sba Franchise Directory, it's going to take you to an SBA website that has a directory of all of the franchises that are approved by the SBA. If you're doing any transaction that involves franchise or any sort of gas station fuel supply or any of the hotels that are branded, make sure you go to that webpage and look up your franchise. And it will tell you whether it's eligible or not eligible, or if it is eligible and there are conditions, it'll tell you all of that information there. So that's what the lenders look at. And so if you check that first, then you will know exactly what the lender is going to require of you and of the franchise. Okay. Fictitious business name statement, I mean, it's a simple document. Generally speaking, most businesses will have one. If you're not operating exactly as the name of your entity, or if you're sole prop, if you're not operating with your individual name, then you need to have a fictitious business name statement. Okay.